Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome back to Summer School E-commerce Ops Edition. Today I'm joined by Travis and the Signifyd team. Hey Travis, thanks for joining.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, for everyone that's been listening, you've been seeing it each day in the session series so far, is that we are bringing on the experts to teach what they know best. So Travis is going to be talking about fraud prevention and how to kind of prevent order leakage. So really excited about today's session. We're going to jump right into it. Travis, I'm going to hand you over the mic and then I'll jump in at the end to help close things up from there.
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you, TaxCloud, I should say, for inviting me and Signifyd to participate here. We are going to take a little bit, categorically, a deep dive into fraud protection, right? But what we'll kind of unlock is that there's a lot more to fraud protection than just, defending against fraud. The way we do things here at Signifyd, or the way I like to think about it, is we are data-informed, AI-powered. And so you're going to hear a lot about data. You're going to hear a lot about AI today. As Christina mentioned, my name is Travis. I manage partnerships here at Signifyd. And this is what we eat, breathe, and sleep here. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So we'll talk about Signifyd 101, right? It might be summer, but school's not out. You gotta get your brass tacks down and learn a little bit about how the platform works, how we leverage AI, how we drive excellence, et cetera, et cetera. We'll foray into commerce challenges. You can think of this as a why, kind of a why statement, right? We marry our challenges that we see within the e-commerce landscape and with our merchant customers, and that helps us inform why we do what we do. And that's going to get into revenue optimization, which we'll talk about operational excellence and the complete shifting of the liability of fraud away from the merchant. And we take that on here. So we'll talk about that ahead as well. Okay, so Signifyd and AI. AI is a hot topic these days, and it is certainly no different here. The way to think about Signifyd, and by extension AI, is again data-informed, AI-powered. When you use Gemini or ChatGPT or any of those tools, that AI is actually crawling across a lot of data that's inputted into the AI tool, or in many cases, a little thing known as the World Wide Web. So we are kind of a mirror of that, right? So the data informs the AI. Another way to think about that is if AI is the brain, data is the brawn. Whereas ChatGPT might be crawling the web, what we do is we crawl the industry's largest merchant data network. It is all about that data, and that allows us to understand who the customer is, who is the buyer, right? And that will matter a lot in some of we'll call it the lecture ahead. AI allows us to automate the decisioning on orders that come in through the payment gateway, right? So that's another way of saying the jettisoning the human hand. We don't need it. AI can do it. And what this means, we can streamline fulfillment from order out to the customer risk-free, right? So we talk a little about revenue leakage, operational excellence, and the elimination of doing commerce with risk. So we're going to get into all of that. Our flagship product is guaranteed fraud protection. I've called that out here simply because it was the first on the market and is backed by a guarantee that Signifyd provides. So what are some of the challenges we see with our merchants? These are some of the things that we see. Profitability. I felt like a couple of years ago, and I think a lot of people would echo this, it was all about revenue. Growth, 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 growth at all costs. Things are shifting. Now there's a lot more focus on profitability. Dovetailing on that is conversion rate optimization, cost control pressures, and a litany of other variables that we hear about that we are confident that the marriage of AI and data can solve. So what does this look like? Payments, wouldn't you know, are the biggest source of found revenue, to the tune of $18 billion in abandoned online purchases last holiday season alone. And that 18 billion was on the backs of false positive transaction declines alone. Now that's kind of a big, I don't want to say a big word, but a big expression. Basically, what a false decline is it is a declined order when it really is in reality a good order. So that would be like, hey, for whatever reason, Travis, who is a repeat customer, buys something and I get declined for no reason, right? And we'll talk about a little bit what some of those reasons are, but what you need to understand is that that aggregates into $18 billion across the e-commerce ecosystem. So as a visual, what we call this is revenue leakage. So let's say we start at 100% of total orders. 94, we drop down 6 points to 94% for bank authorization, right? Expired cards, things of that nature. So we lost some revenue there. We are weeding out revenue at the point of transaction for fraud, right? Now, depending on the tools, we can get into that, right? But in this case, we'll say 7 points. So we're losing 7 points to fraud that we're detecting at transaction. There's a point lost in the fulfillment, right? Somebody gets cold feet, right, with the expensive shoes, and they cancel their order, right? So we lose another point there. Just like that, we're down 14 points. When we jump ahead, then we're getting hit back again with chargebacks for fraud chargebacks and abuse chargebacks. And we add this all together, that is a lot of lost revenue that we probably didn't need to lose. And when we talk about a focus on profitability, this is not ideal. So enter AI, enter Signifyd. How do we help, right? Let's say without AI, this is just an example. We have 100 bips, which are basis points and chargeback costs. Let's say our approval rate's around 90%, which maybe on the surface sounds pretty good, right? And we're dedicating maybe 10 hours a month for manually reviewing, let's say, orders that come through. And I want to hang out there for a second. When I say manually reviewing orders, a lot of legacy tools that are not using AI are kind of rules based. Another way to think about that is if you're a marketer, is like scoring based, right? So you think about your red transactions, those are bad, right? Those are red flags. Like we know that, with the Proton email or whatever it is, we know that's fraud, right? And then we have the green ones, which are, hey, Travis or Christina comes here and shops like all the time from the same email address, that's good to go. It's those yellow lights, right? Those yellow flag ones that a lot of times we see without AI get outsourced somewhere internally with the merchant. Time is money. Is that a good use of time? I would argue not. So we'll that's something to consider. Now with AI, as we alluded to above, we're talking about the complete elimination of chargeback costs, right? When you introduce a platform like Signifyd and AI, you never have to worry about chargebacks again. And to the tune of what I talked about earlier with false declines, we are able to find, with AI-powered platform, up to 5 to 9% in found revenue. So that's another way of saying we are doing away with 5 to 9% in false declines at checkout, right? And we're talking about profitability. Again, that's key. That's found revenue. And last but certainly not least, all of it is 100% automated. No human hand required. As a visualization, we're going to break this down here, but this is, just as a kind of a macro visualization. You have your declined orders, right, that happen in the funnel. You have your sales, right, and then you have your operational costs and your chargeback costs. Based on the slide I presented before, you could probably see where this is going, but let's break it down. So, number one, AI eliminates false declines. I'm sorry to every human being out there, I am one, but AI just does it better. So when we focus here, again, to the tune on false declines, what we see is a jump in approval rates when we use a platform like Signifyd with a large merchant data network and AI, intelligence-driven decisioning on those orders. So another way to think about that is when you have those two, when you have the marriage of AI and a massive merchant data network, the largest in our case, That's another way of saying we basically know every buyer. We know who they are, right? Even if they've only bought, let's say the merchant is on Shopify, right? And a customer only purchased online for whatever reason through Salesforce ecosystems. We're platform agnostic. We are plugged into all of these networks. We still know that buyer, even though the merchant is on Shopify and that buyer has never bought through Shopify before. We still know them, right? And so what that means is we can be very accurate with the decisioning, and that is the proof in the pudding when we say we can lift found revenue 5 to 9% on approvals. That's a little bit what we're talking about. So to put a bow on that, we increase profitability, right, by driving and finding more revenue and doing away with false declines. It informs more intelligent reporting. If you're a marketer and you're putting tons of dollars into a specific channel, basically for those leads to just hit a cliff, right, because of an overly conservative fraud detection apparatus, that reflects poorly on your paid channels in the reporting and the ROI. So we can improve that. And kind of like your hidden benefit is it boosts CLTV. Because if you think about it, let's say for whatever reason, I usually buy through my personal computer, but I'm at the library someday and I buy through public computer and I get declined. I'm going to say, hey, what the hey? I'm a loyal customer. Right? So that's not a good experience. We don't want that, especially in profitability. We want folks coming back. We all know it's a lot more expensive to drive new customers than it is to bring back existing ones. So food for thought too. Every decline is a lost order. But what does it mean to all the time, energy, and dollars that went into acquiring that buyer? Just going to put that out there. Okay, AI delivers speed and CX. So if you think about the automation of decisioning, machines are faster, right? So we can fulfill orders quicker and decision orders quicker. I used that kind of red, green, yellow light example earlier. There are no yellow light orders that go and have to be reviewed. Whether you're a good buyer or a bad buyer, that decision is going to be made immediately. It allows folks that are designated to do a specific task, like getting more through the funnel, to focus on getting more through the funnel, right? And so when you do that, when orders go through faster, on the back end with the fulfillment automation, whatever software is being used there, that can be actioned on quicker as well, because all of the orders are coming through that much quicker. So we see a boost in overall sales. So again, just to put a bow on that, resource appropriation. We don't need to send those yellow light orders to customer support, right? And so they can focus on supporting customers with other things, or a complete reduction of cost on the labor entirely, right? Because time is money, obviously, and they're not spending time reviewing orders. And of course, better CX leads to more repeat customers. And again, profitability, being king, that's critical. Another food for thought, when speed to fulfillment increases, how does this impact the sales funnel? Something to think about. Okay, last but not least, AI eliminates the cost of fraud entirely. We are so confident in, again, the marriage of the largest merchant data network and AI to decision the orders. We actually say to our merchants, hey, you know what? You don't have to worry about fraud ever again. We'll take on that risk. That's another way of saying we know we're going to get it right, that the machines are going to get it right, so we don't have to sweat it, and if we get it wrong, we'll eat it, right? But that doesn't happen too often. And so what that means is a net decrease in cost for the merchant, and because merchants don't have to earmark for chargebacks, it's gone. And again, to allude to the prior slide, because we're not outsourcing to other teams, we're reducing operational costs as well. Again, just to put a bow on it, no cost, or what we call actually internally is fearless commerce. So you can do your commerce fearlessly, risk-free, focus on what you do best, which is selling and servicing customers, and aiding and forecast profitability, right? If you know you don't have costs that are going to hit you downstream and you're seeing higher approval rates, you have better forecasting. Better forecasting means you can appropriate dollars more intelligently against different channels, and all in the name of profitability. And last food for thought here is, if you're a merchant and you never had to worry about the liability or the cost of fraud, imagine all the things you could do. What would you do? Think about that. Okay, and to kind of shore this up, everything matters from a real world perspective. So we'll talk about a real world impact very quickly. So BHFO is a merchant customer of Signifyd. They came to us. Their previous fraud prevention partner was, and we see this a lot, they weren't an AI driven platform. They were overcorrecting for fraud. So this is resulting in a lot of good orders being declined and a super high customer insult rate. Now, with Signifyd, BHFO improved their B2B and B2C customer lifetime value by, again, reducing false declines. So we talked about that 5 to 9% lift. That's exactly what we're talking about. Completely automated the review of challenging orders. Again, that kind of yellow light, yellow flag area of orders, completely automated. We let the machines take care of that and make the decisioning. And that allowed for expedited shipping. So if we can do things more quickly, that's going to lead to higher CSAT scores as well. And with payment fraud under control, they had the capacity to optimize their approach to other areas of the business, like returns, and they could eliminate abusive behavior and transform the entire offering into a major profit center. So that's actually a big, I probably should have alluded to that before, that is a big call out. When you think about fraud protection, a lot of people think about kind of like an insurance policy, right? It's kind of a cost center, right? You need it for the rainy day, when there's the flood, et cetera, et cetera. And while that's not entirely untrue, in this example, we can actually think about Signifyd as a revenue generating tool, which is super cool. And that exemplifies here with BHFO. So 99% order approval rate. That means 99% of orders were being approved. 69% decrease in chargebacks, and $0 lost to chargebacks. So when I say the machines, the AI does it better, the proof here is in the proverbial pudding. Now, if you remember nothing else about this lecture here, if you will, is that Signifyd employs a combination of AI and data, right? We say data informed, AI powered to unlock more top line revenue while eliminating the cost of fraud to the bottom line. And that, I will land it. Thank you.
Awesome. Travis, that was awesome. I have learned a whole new area of e-commerce ops, so that was super helpful. And one question I had is kind of 2 in 1, which is, if I'm someone listening and I'm like, this is amazing, right? I can get more orders through, more profitable. Kind of what is typically the step to actually implement a program like this? And then how would you recommend, if someone wants to go forward with that, kind of get in touch with your team from there?
I love those questions. To answer the first part, if you are interested in Signifyd, obviously feel free to reach out to Christina, your friends at TaxCloud, and they can usher that introduction over our way. You can also, I put my email here. You can also feel free to reach out to me directly. If you can't tell, I'm a pretty friendly guy. So that would be a way to get acquainted. So everybody that comes in, you might be wondering, it's like, well, my approval rate is already here. What kind of lift could I expect? Or I'm seeing this amount in chargebacks. You know, the point of all that what I'm trying to say is, we have a stage gate built into our sales process where we request, give me all your numbers, your current approval rates, your AOV, right, average order value, your throughputs, et cetera, et cetera. We actually do an ROI analysis, so we can tell you and benchmark what you can expect performance wise in jumping aboard with a platform like Signifyd.
Nice. Well, I love it. Super smart. Cool. Well, awesome. Well, I think that's it. So, Travis, I really appreciate you joining today and presenting, and the Signifyd team for being a part of this. So, for everyone that's been listening, I hope you found the session valuable, and we will be back tomorrow with the next one.
Thank you so much, Christina. Thank you to TaxCloud for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis.